The Batman Who Loves. The Batman Who Loves is one of the most twisted versions of Batman in the DC universe, a shining reflection of what happens when the Dark Knight loses everything that keeps him grounded. First introduced in Dark Days the casting as part of the first cameo appearance of the Dark Knights, seen only in silhouette. His chilling presence was teased further in Dark Knight's Metal 2, with a cameo on the final page, but his full debut came in Teen Titans 12. This version of Batman hails from Earth 22, a reality in which Bruce Wayne does the unthinkable. He kills the Joker. However, what follows is even more terrifying. The Joker's death isn't the end, but the beginning of a nightmare. In this universe, Batman faces his greatest challenge yet when he finally catches the Joker after a long, bloody pursuit. But in a twist of fate, the Joker manages to infect Batman with his toxic brand of insanity. After taking down the clown Prince of Crime, Batman discovers that the Joker has set a trap all along. With a final laugh, the Joker contaminates Batman's mind with his own madness, turning Bruce Wayne into a reflection of the very thing he had fought so hard against. The result is Batman Who Loves. A Batman driven by the Joker's chaotic philosophy with the canon intellect and tactical expertise of the Dark Knight. The Batman Who Loves wears a disturbing version of Batman's traditional costume, with spikes, a spiked crown, and a sadistic grin stretched across his face. His eyes, glowing with the twisted red light, only add to his menacing presence. More than just his terrifying appearance, he carries with him the insanity of the Joker, which makes him a more powerful and predictable threat. With his new twisted outlook on the world, the Batman Who Loves believes that the chaos is the true order of the universe. He's no longer interested in saving Gotham or the world. His only goal is to bring everyone down to his level of madness, turning the world into his personal plaything. And he begins that by creating an army of twisted versions of Batman, all infected by the same madness that corrupted him. His role in Dark Knight's Metal is that of a harbinger of chaos, all with the purpose of destroying the multiverse. Unlike other villains who are driven by ambition or power, the Batman Who Loves is driven by a belief that the universe can only be saved through a complete and utter chaos. Red Death. Red Death is a nightmarish version of Batman from the Dark Knight's Metal event, a storyline from DC Comics that delves into the dark multiverse. Unlike Batman we know, Red Death is a twisted reflection of Bruce Wayne's ideals, brought to a horrifying life in a world where his moral compass is shattered. The character first appeared in Dark Knight's Metal miniseries in 2017, created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. He is a villainous mix of Batman and the Flash, showing what happens when Bruce Wayne takes his obsession with justice to an extreme, one that leaves no room for compassion or restraint. In this universe, Earth 52, Bruce Wayne suffered the greatest loss a hero could face, the death of his entire family. In this version, the tragic loss of his parents and his Robins pushed him over the edge. His obsessive need to stop crime at any cost led him to a point where he was willing to sacrifice his own humanity. Batman, desperate for a way to finally end crime and protect his city, turned to the Speed Force, hoping to use its power to achieve ultimate speed and efficiency. However, the Speed Force is not meant to be wielded by a mere mortal, and this reckless pursuit of power transformed Bruce Wayne into something far, far darker. Red Death's costume is a fusion of Batman's iconic cape and cowl, combined with the red energy of the Speed Force. The result is a being of pure destructive speed, capable of crashing through dimensions and tearing apart anything that stands in his way. In Dark Knight's Metal, Red Death serves as the greatest evil that threatens the multiverse, acting as one of the dark avatars created by the twisted version of the Batman Who Loves. His pursuit of justice is not driven by a desire for vengeance or power, but the belief that he's saving the world from itself. However, this idea of salvation is built on fear and control, where everything operates according to his ruthless logic. His cold, detached nature makes him an even more terrifying version of Batman. His mind is sharp, His will is unbreakable, and his methods devoid of any humanity. The Merciless. The Merciless is one of the most brutal versions of Batman, a character who represents what happens when the Dark Knight sacrifices his morality in the pursuit of ultimate power and control. The Merciless was first introduced in Dark Knight Metal 2 in 2017, as he came from Earth 12, a world where Batman's quest for justice goes beyond his typical methods, and he ultimately fails to resist the temptation of wielding godlike power. In this universe, Batman faces a devastating loss. He fails to save Wonder Woman, his closest ally, from being killed by the great god Ares. And consumed with raging guilt, Bruce Wayne refuses to accept this loss and embarks on a path of vengeance unlike any he's walked before. In his grave and desperation, he takes up the powerful helmet of Ares, a mystical artifact that gives its wearer the god's strength and abilities. So by wearing the helmet, Batman became the Merciless, taking on the power of the god of war, but also absorbing his bloodlust, cruelty, and ruthless nature. The helmet not only grants him immense strength, but also feeds his rage and allows him to wield a powerful sword capable of slicing through almost anything. His appearance is a stark contrast to the traditional Batman costume. The Merciless wears a battered, war-torn version of the Bat armor, which is now adorned with the helmet of Ares. The helmet's design is imposing, with sharp, aggressive features and a dark, menacing aura that perfectly matches his new persona. His weapons are no longer just gadgets and batarangs, they are tools of war, as he now wields a large sword that can cut through anything in his path. This version of Batman is far more menacing and terrifying, with an often cold demeanor that reflects his complete loss of compassion and empathy. The Jound. The Jound is one of the most visually striking and horrific versions of Batman, a character who exists in a twisted reality where Batman's fight against crime takes an entirely different aquatic form. First introduced in Dark Knight Metal 2 in 2017, the Jound hails from Earth 11, a world where everything is transformed to a dark aquatic twist. In this universe, instead of Bruce Wayne, it is his counterpart Bryce Wayne, who becomes Batman but with a tragic and horrific difference. In Earth 11, Bryce Wayne is a female version of Batman, and her story begins much like the original Batman's. She witnesses the tragic death of her parents, which drives her to become the protector of Gotham. However, the key difference lies in her approach to crime fighting. In this reality, Gotham is not just a city of shadows and alleys, it's a city by the sea, and Bryce embraces the power of the oceans. So, instead of using the traditional tools and technology that we associate with Batman, the Jound is immersed in the mysteries and power of the ocean, reflecting a darker, more destructive version of the Dark Knight. The turning point for Bryce Wayne comes when she discovers an ancient aquatic relic, a powerful trident imbued with the energy of the ocean and the creatures within it. Driven by her desire to protect Gotham for those who threaten it, she uses the trident to transform herself into something more than human, powers that grant her aquatic abilities as it begins to alter her very nature. Over time, her obsession with the ocean consumes her, and she becomes the Drowned. More than just a symbol of Batman, she becomes a force of nature, both terrifying and unstoppable. The Jound wears a suit that combines elements of Batman's classic costume with the watery element of the ocean. Her cape is like the flowing current of the sea, and her armor is sleek, almost fish-like, reflecting her deep connection with the aquatic world. The trident she carries is an imposing weapon, one that radiates power and aggression. This version of Batman is not just about sleuth and strategy, she is about overwhelming force, using the raw power of the ocean to achieve her goals. As one of the evil Batman created by the Batman Who Laughs in the Dark Knight's Metal event, the Jound plays a key role in the battle to reshape the multiverse into a darker, more chaotic world. She represents the twisted potential of Batman's philosophy when taken to an extreme, an unstoppable force who embraces the destructive power of nature to enforce her vision of justice. FlashPoint Batman. FlashPoint Batman is one of the most tragic and haunting versions of the Dark Knight, emerging from Flashpoint's storyline in DC Comics, which began in Flashpoint 1 in 2011. This version of Batman comes from an alternate reality, Earth Flashpoint, where everything is turned upside down. In this world, Bruce Wayne never became Batman in the traditional sense. Instead, his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, were the ones who lost their son in a dark twist of fate. And it is Thomas Wayne who takes on the role of Batman. FlashPoint Batman's story is deeply tragic and speaks to the grief and anger that drives this version of the character. In this universe, Bruce Wayne is murdered in a mugging gone wrong, and his parents, devastated by the loss of their son, go down very different paths than their main universe counterparts. Martha Wayne becomes the Joker, twisted by her grief, while Thomas Wayne, instead of becoming Gotham City protector, becomes a brutal and vengeful Batman, driven by his persistent anger and desire for justice. What makes FlashPoint Batman so compelling and so terrifying is the way his grief has completely obliterated his sense of morality and justice. Instead of becoming the symbol of hope and inspiration that the original Batman strives for, Thomas Wayne is far darker and more violent figure. He does not hold back in his methods. Instead of relying on the no-kill rule Batman is known for, FlashPoint Batman is willing to use deadly force. He is a Batman who will do anything, no matter how extreme, to punish the criminal elements of Gotham and seek revenge for the death of his son. FlashPoint's Batman costume is a dark and somber version of the traditional Batsuit. His cape is jagged and his coat is sharper, giving him a much more intimidating and brutal look than the original Batman. His appearance, much like his personality, reflects the darkness that has consumed him. His utility belt is equipped with weapons and he carries guns. His willingness to use firearms highlights the extent to which Thomas Wayne's sense of justice has been robbed by his overwhelming grief and rage. This version of Batman plays a crucial role, as he is one of the key players in the conflict between the warring nations of the world. He stands in opposition to the Justice League, showing how far he has fallen from the ideals of his son's legacy. FlashPoint Batman is a tragic figure because he represents what can happen when a person loses everything, and instead of using that loss to fuel a desire to protect others, they became consumed by it. His story is a stark reminder of how the loss of innocence and the absence of hope can twist even the greatest of heroes into something far darker. Owlman. Owlman is one of the most iconic and chilling alternate versions of Batman, essentially Batman if he fully embraced nihilism, control, and moral decay. Coming from Earth 3, a twisted universe where good and evil are reversed, Owlman is the evil counterpart to Bruce Wayne. Instead of fighting crime and protecting the innocent, Owlman uses his unmatched intellect, physical skills, and resources to dominate and manipulate. First appearing in Justice League of America 29, 1964, and later reimagined in modern stories like Forever Evil and Crisis on True Earth. Owlman represents what happened when Bruce Wayne becomes the criminal overlord instead of the Dark Knight. In Owlman's universe, Earth 3, Thomas Wayne Jr., not Bruce, takes up the mantle. In this version, young Thomas witnesses his parent and younger brother Bruce got murdered. But here's the twist: he orchestrated their death. Unlike the Bruce we know, who is broken by tragedy and fueled by a sense of justice, Owlman is cold, calculating, and power-hungry from the very beginning. Rather than swearing to fight crime, he chooses to become its master, fueled by his own twisted sense of superiority, as he believes that the only path to order is absolute control, and he will destroy anyone who gets in his way. Owlman wears a suit similar in function to Batman's, but with the old oil-themed design. His costume is sleek, dark, and imposing, with the glowing lenses and a sized oil symbol that reflects his obsession with watching, scheming, and outsmarting his enemies. His gear is high-tech and built for tactical superiority, emphasizing sleek, surveillance, and psychological manipulation. As a founding member of the crime syndicate, the evil version of the Justice League, Owlman works alongside other twisted versions of heroes like Ultraman, Evil Superman, and Superwoman, Evil Wonder Woman. However, he rarely plays with the others. He constantly plots behind the backs of his allies, always aiming for more power. His relationship with Superwoman, for example, is as manipulative as it is intimate, each using the other to gain leverage within the syndicate. He's a villain who trusts no one, and rightfully so. Owlman's outlook on life is deeply nihilistic. He believes that choice is an illusion, that free will is a lie, and that all outcomes are determined by power. This dark worldview drives him to control not just individuals, but entire worlds. In the Forever Evil storyline, when the crime syndicate invades Earth Prime, the main DC universe, Owlman clashes with Batman, seeing him as a naive version of himself, a man still clinging to hope morality, and weakness. In those confrontations, the horror of Owlman becomes clear. He is Batman, stripped of humanity, driven purely by control and intellectual superiority. The Grim Knight. The Grim Knight is one of the most brutal versions of Batman, embodying the darkest, most violent aspects of the Dark Knight's philosophy. First introduced in Batman Who Laughs Volume 2 in 2019. The Grim Knight is an alternate version of Batman from Earth 44, a reality where Batman's moral code is shattered by the brutal murder of his parents, pushing him into a path of relentless vengeance and brutality. In the Grim Knight's words, the core of Batman's origins remain the same. Bruce Wayne witnesses the tragic death of his parents in Crime Alley blah blah blah. However, unlike the original Batman, this version of Bruce doesn't hold back in his pursuit of justice. In this universe, the trauma of his parents' death leads him to a far darker conclusion. To truly protect Gotham, he must eliminate all the criminals, and he's willing to use any means necessary, no matter how violent or extreme. The Grim Knight doesn't just use gadgets and non-lethal force. He's prepared to use deadly weapons and kill everyone who stands in his way. He arms himself with an array of deadly firearms and explosive devices, viewing murder as a necessary tool in his war against crime. The Grim Knight's primary weapon is his dual handgun, and he isn't afraid to use them in pursuit of what he believes is justice. He doesn't rely on the sleaze and restraint that defined the classic Batman. Instead, he approaches crime fighting with violent, no-holds-barred mentality. The Grim Knight's armor is a dark, intimidating twist on the classic Batsuit. It's made of heavy, bulletproof material, and his mask has a stark, grim expression with a sharp angle that gives him a menacing appearance. His utility belt is also equipped with an arsenal of firearms, explosives, and other lethal weapons. Everything needed for a no-compromise fight against crime. He is the Batman who carries a machine gun, uses grenade, and shows no mercy in this pursuit of justice. In this universe, Gotham is not a place of hope or redemption. It's a place where only the strongest survive. And Batman is the judge, jury, and executioner. Criminals live in a constant fear of the Grim Knight, knowing that any crime they commit, no matter how small, could end in their death. This Batman has become so consumed by vengeance that he has lost the ability to differentiate between right and wrong in any traditional sense. For him, it's all about eliminating the threat, no matter the cost.